When Allied cryptanalysts arrived at the small decoding hut in southern Italy on a morning of June 5th, 1944, they expected another routine sift through low-priority radio chatter. Most of the real German traffic was handled elsewhere. But that morning, one operator noticed a faint, unstable signal buried in the static, civilian wavelength, weak power, and transmitted from deep inside German-occupied territory. At first they assumed it was just background noise, but then the signal repeated. Short bursts, a pause, another sequence. Not Morse used by German units. Not the usual partisan groups either. This was something different, something urgent. The operator called for the duty officer. "Sir, I think this one's meant for us." The officer listened, checked the reference sheets, and frowned. The message was encoded with a cipher Allied intelligence had not seen in months. A one-time pad system used only by a handful of high-risk partisan networks behind enemy lines. Most of those units have been destroyed by German anti-partisan sweeps. If this message was real, then someone out there had survived. But the most important question was, why were they contacting the Allies now? The signal abruptly stopped. The room fell silent. The officer ordered an immediate extraction attempt. The message was extremely short, less than a sentence, but every second mattered. A decoding team went to work. They aligned the sequences, tested old keybooks, reconstructed gaps where static had ruined parts of the transmission. It took them nearly 40 minutes. And then, suddenly, the meaning became clear. The message read, "German armor diversion moving through the mountain pass. You must change route. Ambush prepared for June 10th. Trust no local guides. The source is compromised." The room froze. For weeks, Allied planners had prepared in advance through that exact mountain pass, believing it undefended. Intelligence reports from captured Germans suggested no armored presence nearby. But this message, if true, meant they were walking into a trap designed to destroy not just a small force, but the entire Allied advance in the region. The Germans had used this tactic before. Lure a division into rough terrain, block the exit, and crush them with armor and artillery. If the Allies continued with their plan, thousands of soldiers would die. But there was a problem. There was no signature, no authentication code. Nothing proving the message came from a trusted partisan group. For all they knew, it could be a German deception, a fake transmission to scare the Allies away from a strategically valuable route. Intelligence officers debated for hours. Some argued it was too risky to trust an unverified source. Others believed no German unit would use such a weak civilian frequency or risk transmitting such specific information. The message had the structure and urgency typical of real partisan warnings. Meanwhile, reconnaissance planes were sent to observe the pass. What they found shocked them. Fresh tire tracks, concealed artillery positions, camouflage netting over armored vehicles, and German engineers preparing explosive charges along the cliffs. The message was real. Within hours, Allied commanders ordered a complete change of plan. The main advance was rerouted, preventing the German ambush from fulfilling its purpose. But the story didn't end there. The Allies needed to know who had sent the warning. They traced the signal to a rough radius, a rugged forested area used by various resistance groups. Days later, a second message arrived, much weaker, more scattered, almost unreadable. After cleaning it up, the message said, "Position compromised. We will hold as long as possible. Continue advance. Do not attempt contact." The Allies tried to respond, urging the sender to evacuate, but there was no reply. Reports from locals later confirmed what had happened. A small partisan cell, fewer than 10 men and women, had intercepted German orders revealing the planned ambush. They knew transmitting information would expose them. German radio direction teams were active in the area. They would triangulate the source. Capture was almost certain, but the partisans sent the message anyway and stayed on air long enough for the Allies to receive and decode it. German patrols reached the forest hideout 2 days later. They found only burned equipment, a dismantled radio, and signs of a brief firefight. The partisans had destroyed everything that could identify them, giving no names, no affiliations, no documents. Even today, historians aren't entirely sure which group they belong to. Some believe they were remnants of an SOE-trained sabotage team. Others argue they were locals who had learned enough encryption from captured manuals to get a message through. Their identities remain unknown. But their one transmission, less than 10 seconds long, saved an entire Allied division from annihilation. Intelligence officers later wrote that without that warning, the advance would have been catastrophically delayed, possibly altering the timing of major operations that followed. For decades, the event was classified, buried inside wartime decoding archives. Only when the documents were declassified did the story emerge, revealing how a small group of partisans changed the course of an entire campaign. Not with firepower, but with a single desperate radio signal. Today, historians still refer to it simply as the message with no name. A message sent by ghosts. A message that arrived at the exact moment it was needed. And a message that proved, more than anything, that in the world of intelligence and code breaking, sometimes the smallest voices echo the loudest.